It being 6 o'clock, I'll call to order the October 27th meeting of the Swansea Planning Board here at Wickham Hall. I'll begin with the roll call. Scott Self, that's me, I'm here. Michael York will not be here this evening. Jane Johnson will not be here this evening. Michael Day.
Here.
Brandon Self.
Here.
Richard Lane.
Here.
Selectman's Rep Ken Colby will not be here this evening. Steve Malone, alternate, is not here. Brian Vertigill, alternate.
Here.
Okay, I'm going to seat Brian for Michael York. And the agenda this evening, we have applications for public hearings. The planning board number 22-017 is a compliance hearing. Chad Brannon, on behalf of Swansea Cal Ripken, requests a compliance hearing for final endorsement of the approved site plan for modifications to the town-owned property located at 120 South Road. Subject property is shown in tax map 24, lots 2-1 and 4, and is located in the residence district. And item B is the planning board number 22-0017, and that's a site plan modification. Having a public hearing. Chad Brannon, on behalf of Swansea Cal Ripken, requests a site plan modification to the approved site plan for a town-owned property located at 120 South Road. The modification includes the addition of permanent fencing between Westfield and O'Brien Field. Subject property is shown at tax map 24, lots 2-1 and 4. And then we have discussions in other business, and other business we have site plan modification request at 251 Old Homestead Highway. Zoning ordinance amendments for 2023. We'll be having a discussion on that. And rules of procedure amendments. That's the rules of procedure for the planning board. Site plan review regulations, again, for us and any other business as may be required. And getting back to the top, let's see. I don't know that we need a regional impact vote, but if anyone wants to make a motion that anything on tonight's agenda requires or does not require us to notify surrounding towns. There's nothing new on there. There's a compliance hearing from before, so I don't think we do. Anybody disagree? No? Okay, so we don't need a regional impact vote. And now we need to approve the minutes of October 6th.
Do we have a motion and a second on that, on the regional impact?
We didn't, because we didn't make a motion on it because nothing on the agenda was new.
Oh, I see.
So it was just a compliance hearing from, I don't know, so no regional impact vote. And on the approval of the minutes, we have first the October 6th, 2022 meeting, and that was a special meeting that we had. Anybody have any concerns for those minutes or any changes, anything like that? If not, motion to approve the minutes as presented is in order.
Make a motion. So
Motion by Richard Lane to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, seconded by Michael Day. Is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, now let's move to the October 13th planning board meeting of 2022. And anyone have any comments on those minutes? And if not, then a motion to approve as presented would be in order.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Brandon Self to approve the minutes as presented. And is there a second? Seconded by Richard Lane. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that's out of the way. Now for application and public hearings. The compliance hearing is the planning board number 22017. It is a compliance hearing. Chad Brannon, on behalf of Swansea Cal Ripken, requests a compliance hearing for final endorsement of the approved site plan for modifications to the town-owned property located at 120 South Road. And I will open the public hearing, and you are up, Mr. Brannon, to make your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Chad Brannon, civil engineer with Fieldstone Lane Consultants. Here this evening, representing Swansea Cal Ripken. And we're essentially here tonight following up on the condition of approval, which required a compliance hearing, merely presenting to the board all the changes that we made to address the conditions of approval. Just to touch on those, if you recall, there was one of the conditions was to remove the connection through the property from the parking lot on the west side to the maintenance building on the east side. This is going to be all grassed with basically a foot traffic path. So that's been revised on the plan. We also added gates on both sides of the project or the property in that location to prevent vehicular traffic from entering. Those would be equipped with knock spots for emergency response personnel as requested. In addition to that, we were asked to move the entrance down here off of South Road to the west. I believe the condition of approval said 30 to 40 feet. We actually moved it about 45 feet to the west. That was at the request of the abutter across the road, but also it was a reasonable request considering the improvements that we're making to the property. So we're happy to be able to do that. The other revision had to do with fencing. We did add a 75-foot extension on the fence here for the abutting property to the east. That was based on, I believe, a prior agreement that the Swansea Calricking had with the owner, and so we wanted to make sure that it made it on the plan for its request. The last item that I want to touch on is the well, not necessarily the last item, but if you recall, the fencing on the south side here for Westfield was closer to the parking area. So we moved this entire field further to the north to provide some spectator room off the edge of the parking area. That was one of the conditions, so we made that revision accordingly. And the last item, which the board actually addressed at the last meeting, if you recall, there was some discussion about temporary fencing along this north section. The board, it was kind of interesting, the planning board didn't make a formal condition, but made a recommendation to the selectmen that be temporary fencing. And the selectmen essentially agreed with that and wanted to maintain that sledding activity. So what we did is we proposed temporary fencing, basically just at about the scoreboard location here on the plan, 140 feet all the way to this area here. That encompasses the entire area of the sledding hill here, and takes into account a number of factors, the tree lines, the topography and stuff. So that'll provide for a safe sledding hill. That was approved by the selectmen in that configuration, and the planning board didn't make any specific requirements as it relates to that. But I just wanted to let you know that was the only real modification. I think the plan that you approved technically showed that as all permanent fence, but it was left open to the selectmen. So that's it. I think that addressed all the compliance items or conditions of approval and stuff. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, before we get into discussion, I failed to point out that our alternate member who is seated for Michael York is an abutter here. So you cannot come, be in the discussions, and you need to sit with the public on this one. And then come back after we're done with these. Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion. Any questions from the board on the compliance?
I'm not sure if I can bring this up under the compliance or not, but if not, I'm just like, I went over to the fields and did some measuring from the foul line fencing on Westfield, 140 feet out. And that brings us right to the right-hand edge of that slope from the sledding, for sledding. What you have up there right now, going back 140 feet from the existing or the relocation of your scoreboard, brings permanent fencing into the left-hand side of that sledding hill. It'd be right almost directly in front of it, which is a safety issue. My suggestion would be from the left field fencing. Are you familiar with what I'm referring to? Or do you want to see a picture?
I mean, I think you're referring over, I don't know how you're
Sure.
relating that to the site, but I don't think that's compliant.
No, I do need to point out that, right, this compliance hearing just deals with the
Okay,
matters
so
of the
it'll be
planning
in
board.
site.
Pardon me?
It'll come up in site plan. then.
On the next, on the modification of the site plan one, we can bring it up and discuss that on that one there, but since that was not one of the items that the planning board needed for them to comply with for our approval, we can't really discuss it too much. We can discuss it, but it has nothing to do with this hearing.
Okay. The other question I have on your appeals. It's been mentioned that the reason you're doing this, one of the reasons you're doing this is to be more compliant with Cal Ripken as far as distance from home plate to the fence, correct?
That's definitely an improvement we're looking to make.
Okay. 220 feet is your arc on both fields.
Again, I have to interrupt you, Richard, because this is just compliance. We have to decide whether they met our conditions of compliance on this particular part of the meeting. And the next meeting,
Okay.
we'll be discussing more
I'll back up.
of that. So any questions from the board on that particular, the compliance hearing? And that has to do, and I'll read them off. That has to do with the roadway in the center. It needs to be taken off the plat, which it was done. And that also has to do with the gates on the fencing, the access to the fields on either side of it, which is on there. We have a plat in front of us here. Also has to do with moving the parking lot entrance. And that was moved, and to move the fence northerly away from that parking area to give more room for spectators there. And that was done, and that is on the plat. So we need to confine ourselves just to those items right now on this particular hearing.
Okay, the right, or the connection between the two gates. Didn't that get changed again?
That whole area there, it showed a road or a gravel road, and that got changed to grass.
Grass, but then they'd come back again and say they wanted something more substantial.
I think, didn't you just say that's going to be a path and grass through there?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the fire department was fine with it being grass because of the underlying soil being acceptable for their efforts. And I think they documented that.
Yeah. They did, and they also prefer the gravel walkway through there because it would prevent spectators from setting up tents. So it will be easier in the case of an emergency to actually clear people out of the area.
And so we're doing with it's now all gravel then.
It's just a,
Halfway.
is it like 10 feet?
Yeah.
So just to prevent tents from being set up in that whole area.
Okay, any other comments from board members? Questions? Any questions from the public on this particular compliance issue or these issues of compliance? And if not, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and the plan will discuss it, and we will render our decision. Thank you. Okay, public hearing is closed, and they put everything on there we asked them to put on, came back with it. It's there, pointed it out. So unless we're missing something, then we just need a motion to approve the conditions that we had implemented on the drawing, and that they are here. We're going to approve of them. And then after that.
Mr. Chairman, I have it as a final endorsement of the approved site plan.
Okay, yeah, it's a final endorsement. It's not, the chairman doesn't sign the plan until all of the items that were under condition are on the plat. So
Right.
it has approval, but it doesn't have final approval. So
That's why it's a
endorsement is
final
fine.
endorsement of the
That's
approval.
fine. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, a motion could reflect that. A motion to approve the final endorsement of the plat.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Brandon Self to approve the final endorsement of the plat. Is there a second?
I have a question.
Yeah,
If
let's have
our-
a second first, then we can have a discussion.
Yeah.
Do we have a second? Or,
I'll second.
okay, seconded by Michael Day. Is there, okay, now we can go for discussion.
Okay, we're just approving the fact that this is they've made their compliance.
Yep.
Correct. Nothing finalized on the plat.
No, we're just approving,
What we asked them to do.
that they actually came back and complied with what the planning board put for conditions on
Because
the
I misunderstood what she was saying to me or to us.
Final endorsement of the approved site plan.
It's not the site plan we're approving though, is it?
It's not,
It's an approved site plan is what
Approved
Beverly
site
said. It's an
plan.
approved site plan and we're endorsing it. The chairman's going to be signing that if everything is on there, which appears to be. So the planning board approved the site plan with conditions. So they got their approval and they could move forward with other things. But you don't have final approval on it until you come back for a compliance hearing. If there are conditions that have to be added to the plat. You have a compliance hearing, then if that gets approved for compliance, then the chairman can sign that plat and it's official, it's a final approval then. But it's not actual final approval until that's signed by the chairman.
Okay, so what are we doing with the site plan review?
We're doing a modification to the site plan after this one. That second item we have, public hearing, that's a public hearing as well. So that's on that. Yeah, and this is just those items that I read off here.
Okay, I just want to be sure that we're not finalizing something that we can't go back to.
I see, yeah, I see your point. Yeah, no, this is just for those conditions
Right.
that we already approved. So we have a motion by Brandon Self to approve the site plan with the conditions and a second by Michael Day. Is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So, okay, so that part's done. That final approval is there. So now we move on to the next agenda item, which again, it's planning board number 22-0017. That's a site plan modification. We're having a public hearing. Chad Brannon on behalf of Swansea Cal Ripken requests a site plan modification to the approved site plan for town-owned property located at 120 South Road. Modification includes the addition of permanent fencing between Westfield and O'Brien Field. Subject property is shown in tax map 24, lots 2-1 and 4, and is located in residential district. And that being said, I will open up the public hearing for the site plan modification. And so, do we have another drawing for that one?
There is a drawing, another drawing for that one, but at the interest of saving everybody's time, we had a conversation this afternoon with the rec department regarding the permanent fencing in between West and O'Brien. And it's my understanding that there are still some concerns that we need to work out. So we're actually going to withdraw the application for the modification at this time because we want to spend some additional time with the rec department, make sure that we addressed any concerns. And what I would suggest and we would have to file another application, presumably, to make a modification.
Do you want to continue this one?
We could,
How soon are your negotiations or whatever you're doing?
we could continue it if that's, at the board's.
Well, it would save you from notifying everyone again if we continue to a certain time and date, which is say our next meeting or whatever it happens to be, until you decide what you're going to do there. We could do that, or you could file again.
I will modify that request to a continuance, but I would just ask that it's 30 days out. So it could be,
Well, we'll continue to our next meeting. And then if it's not, let's see, what is our next meeting? Is it, we are following Thanksgiving Day, right? Yeah, so we continue to that meeting.
December 8th.
And then,
it will be which date, November?
I don't know.
well,
Do
if
you
we
want to hear that
continue,
one again?
if we continue to the 10th, you probably won't be ready by the 10th. Is that what you're saying?
I want to be able to spend some time. So what we're going to do, and I think this, and I would like to maybe have the board's permission to communicate with Mr. Lane as well. We're going to lay out, what we're proposing to do is lay out the soccer field so that we can have a meeting on site with Ashley, with the rec department. And at the same time, we would be happy to, maybe lay out exactly where the fencing would be so that we can, take a look at that and I know, I'd be happy for, more people to be there, but if it gets more than 3, I think it's a public hearing. So at the same time, I know Mr. Lane has had some concerns with the temporary fencing. We would be happy to try to address those at the same time. If the board wants to entertain a continuance, we would be happy to handle it in that fashion.
I think that's a good way to handle it.
Number 8.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you're gonna be ready by our next meeting.
That's why I was asking. For your
Yeah.
views.
So would that be December?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next, so let's continue. We'll need a motion for this to continue this public hearing to the planning board meeting on December 8th at Whitcomb Hall at
December,
6.
not
Dec-
November?
No, December 8th. He won't be ready for our next planning board meeting, and we're probably not gonna have a meeting on Thanksgiving Day. That's when our other meeting comes. So it would be December 8th.
Bring the turkey.
Well, we got a big enough table, don't we? So December 8th is when we'll continue this public hearing on, and that's the site plan modification hearing because we approved the other plan.
So you're gonna send out another letter to all of us?
No, we won't because the date and time has been notified at this meeting here. You just copy it down on something, you're notified. This is your notice right here.
Trust me.
Yeah, I do. So,
Orange or in the Northeast, or I'll be here.
okay, so we need a motion to that effect.
Motion that we
Okay, motion by Michael Day to,
accept the post or
no, to continue the public hearing
hearing until December 8th.
December 8th, yeah, 6 p.m. at, so this, and seconded by Brandon Self. Okay,
There you go.
is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so that's continued, December 8th. December 8th.
And then, Mr. Chairman, would I just reach out to you, Sarah, and let you know when we're leaving out, if you could relay that to.
Yeah, and that's fine, yeah, for Richard.
If anyone else wants to join, as long as I have more than 24 hours notice, I can post it and they can have a public meeting if more than
Okay.
3 members want to be there.
I will leave that up to the board, so we'll give you,
Yeah.
we'll give you
Ample time.
ample time, and you guys can decide how you.
I'm just concerned.
Okay,
Take your-
thank you.
Take your judgment on it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned.
So does anyone else want to attend that meeting that Richard's going to attend with the developer? I'm fine with Richard, seems to be quite into it, knows pretty much what's going on over there, so. And, well,
Must be my fault.
Brian might want to be
You
there.
know, depending on the date,
Well, Sarah will let us know then,
Yeah.
and it'll have to be right 24 hours prior to. But, okay.
I have a process.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you over there.
Is work now starting? Will be starting based on the plan that was just approved in the compliance hearing, and then we're gonna get another plan on this.
Work- Work could be started, yes, because they have their approval. They have the final approval, so work can be started over there as far as I know. The work couldn't be done on the modifications that they're presenting or will be presenting. They wouldn't be starting on that work, but all the other site plans laid out there with the conditions is approved
Okay,
and they can start.
so is that version that was just approved, I assume you'll sign, is that available for the public to get a copy of, look at town hall at some point?
It is, and it has been available at Town Hall. And yeah, you can,
The version you just presented tonight. it's not the-
you'll be able to view it. No,
Okay,
you can, those are probably still there, but the most recent updated one, we have a copy of it here.
okay, and then the one that's coming forward for the modification hearing on December 8th. Is that going to be available in advance? Can it be available in advance?
It will be. I'm not sure how far in advance, because they have to do the work on the plat to decide what they're going to do there. But it will be available some point in advance. I don't know how, well, you could stop in Town Hall or you could call Town Hall to find
Okay, I
out.
just wanted to continue hearing, I don't know what the process was.
Yep.
Just follow all
That's
the
it.
rules, but also trying to be efficient. And when we show up here and there's a random thing that no one's had time to digest, then it's not efficient for you guys in terms of concentrating the process here. So I'm trying to understand.
Okay, and again, it's continued because they aren't quite certain exactly what they're going to do. They may be changing some things. There may be different modifications they're going to do to that. So
And I
That's
do
why it's
appreciate
continued.
the, like, acknowledging that 2 weeks from now, it probably won't be ready, so let's set a date, because
we have to do that
every 2
anyway.
weeks showing up and they're not having it ready, you know, some of us have to chop instead of chop. So, but we have a date.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a little confused as to their ability to start work on the field. Where we haven't done with the site reviews.
We are done, we're done with the site plan review. They want to modify
Yeah,
it.
we've done with the site plan review. That was what the second one was going to be.
The second plan was a modification of the site plan review, which is what you're going to be sitting on.
Right. But, they're changing what they just approved.
No, they can't change.
Well,
Like-
they're going to be.
Well, you're talking about in terms of the fence there, or the
Fence.
fences and the layout of the field, correct?
Fence and how they start out with the construction and where their parking is going to be.
And none of the parking was
I don't
changing.
think the parking, yeah.
May I'm going to be a little bit out of order here, I'm sorry. But the rec department, excuse me, Cal Ripken, yes, the rec department was presented with a new plat that shows O'Brien Field being started and the parking in Westfield.
That's that small parking over there?
No.
No.
Back to, if I understand this correctly, back to this type of setup.
That's ideally what the plan is, to start their phases, because at this point, they're not gonna have construction of this done for season.
Well, it's gonna fall into the hands of the code enforcement officer as this progresses here. And if it's not denoted on the plan, then that isn't going on the field. And he knows that.
Okay.
If they're gonna do something different than the parking there, he's gonna send them back here. They can't do it.
Would he stop them?
Okay,
That's that, you know, if it's not on that drawing, because that's a drawing the planning board approved.
okay, so they cannot do any, they can, if they start construction, they can't do anything different than what is there.
Correct.
Okay,
That's right, including the modifications they're talking about. They can't do those either.
and relocation of any soccer field or anything like that.
Not unless it's with the plan. They'd have to come back when they're doing their modification. I guess that's one of their modifications, come back from that site plan to do the soccer fields or something, but everything that's laid out on there, that's how it's got to be laid out. Otherwise have to stop and come back here.
Okay. Have you given Mike a heads up?
Well, I've let them know what's been discussed on how they were phasing out the construction of all this, and I came in to ask, like, what's the time frame? How long do they have to complete the project to the flat that's been presented and things like that? And that'll kind of depend a little up in the air on who depends on overseeing it, kind of thing, I feel like. But they're talking about kind of putting in phases because of the lack of field space and potential of being able to get both of them at the same time for the spring season to start.
That's not uncommon to phase projects, development projects. We have in a year before we have on phases. That's not uncommon, but again, they have to comply with what's on the drawing or come back for modification. And then, yeah, so yeah, you're going to be sitting on those meetings of the modification one, right? So
Yes, I'll be with Chad.
okay, so I presume that you will look out for the planning board's interest on that and
Let's definitely will try.
get something settled. Okay.
Bring that right with you.
Well, I've got it in a couple of other jurisdictions soon.
So let's see, we have modification request. Yeah, I guess this is just a discussion, actually. This isn't actually a site plan modification. They're looking, I think, for some kind of clarification maybe. And that has to do, that's our next agenda item. That has to do with the storage facilities over there by the airport. Bob Furlong. And would you identify yourself? Oh, you're Bob, right? Bob. You're like beard. I didn't recognize there as a beard. So what are we doing here? What are we?
I want to add 2 small buildings, which is all I have room left for down there, to tell you the truth. And it came about because this parking's being approved, and we're gonna have to put a school, I think, right across the street. and we're full, so we'd like to add some smaller units. So I'm looking to increase the whole storage facility by about 5%. This is 1,650 square feet.
And the darkened buildings, I'm assuming.
Those are the new
where you're going.
Those are the new.
And let's see now, where are we here? Looking to see Route 12 out here,
32.
or 32 rather, out here.
Right.
And let's see, the right of way.
The right of way is
Go-
right. No, the right of way is right there, where you contours are shown on the.
It's after,
I think I meant the sewer line right of way that comes.
Oh, the
through
sewer line
32.
right of way
I think
is
that's
there.
right
That's
there, isn't
correct.
it? Okay, I'm just
That's
getting
correct.
placement as to where it is.
Yeah, the pump station is off of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking there.
Whole
That's-
thing behind this other, spaces. It's like kind of right back here.
You actually, the pump station is down here.
No, referring to power.
Power generator power generator is up here.
Yeah.
True North Networks is right here. Total Air is over there.
So it's basically. the power and your
So it's
existing.
between True North, yeah, I'm in the back of True North right here. So the new exit that we created out of the back of Powers is right here. It's really not impacted. We've got so much room out there.
Mhm.
So these buildings are 15 feet deep.
Well, those buildings are to the west.
That's to the south. There to the south is the rear of 3 buildings.
Me too. Okay. Let's see if it's going. I had trouble orienting it for a minute there, exactly where they're going. Okay, now I get it. Yeah.
Well, Dave Bergeron was retired. This is the only plan I could squeeze out of it.
Okay.
I had to beg for it.
Okay. Yeah. And then the sewer line goes over here, manhole over there, sewer there.
Yep.
Yeah. Into that. So they're up in there. Yeah.
Right.
So some of that parking lot over right behind where the place is, I guess.
So Dave put an infiltration stone right at the back of these. So he's saying we're creating no new drainage, which really, I mean, everything is going right to this catch basin right now. That's where it's going to go when we're done here. I'm going to be paving just enough. I want to hold the buildings out about 3 or 4 feet so I can create a little bit of slope and not have the water go right towards the building. So the paving is going to be, I mean, if there's 500 or 600 square feet, it's a lot. And there's lighting down here now on the building, so there's not going to be any new lighting added here at all. So and the fencing will be modified to still, just the way we've got it down there, go to the building corners. And then we use the building as a buffer.
These are all going to be front entrance. There's not going to be
Everything's
side.
gonna, nothing from the side, everything you have to get in the gate in the front to get to these units right here.
And-
I'm sorry. You're not going to have front and back entrances into the building.
No.
Yeah, it's just going to be front and side.
Just the front, just from the paved area right here. This is just from the paved area.
So what you're looking for is consensus as to whether you need to come in for a modification.
Or is this a modification? Yeah, I mean, do I need to go to here?
And the board will decide whether it's a modification to the site plan. I would say it is a modification to the site plan. You know, you're adding on, you know, not much, but you're adding on some square footage building space over there. And I would say it would fall into the category of modification to the site. Let the rest of the board members think about that. But what we need to decide is whether we're going to have him come for a full-blown site plan, which I don't think we need to, or for a modification to the site plan, and if so, we need a motion saying so. So what does anybody think? Everybody's familiar? It took me a minute to get oriented as to where that is. Everybody familiar about what's going on back there? Yeah.
I just a motion that it's a site plan modification.
Okay, motion by Richard Lane. That it would be considered a site plan modification and the applicant would come in for a modification to the site plan. Public hearing held for that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brandon Self. Is there any further discussion? And all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And yeah, it's a modification, and you've been in here before for modifications, so you know, it's pretty straightforward there. Just in other words, or discussion wise with the board, anything that the board sees that may hold him up for any particular reason.
What is the addition of impervious surfaces? Sorry.
Well, counting the building,
Yes.
we're gonna be around 2,000 square feet. Because there's 1,650 square feet of the new building. And then a little bit of pavement, because I don't want to have to take the fence down and put the concrete in. Again, I want to create the slope drainage. So I've got a little sliver of paving down front.
Okay. Is the pavement, is it within like a foot of fence or something like that, or?
The pavement, well, the pavement that we're going to do would be to go from the existing pavement to the new building location.
But currently it's at the fence line.
Yes, it
Or
is.
it's
Yes.
just before the fence.
Yeah, the fence is just outside,
Okay.
within inches.
Yep.
Anybody see anything else that might hold him up here? Okay. Then
So an application, I need to get an application for
Yeah.
modification.
you do for a modification site plan and
Okay.
you're planning, and we'll take a look at it.
Need more plans? Then I don't plan on changing them. So do you want me to resubmit new plans with an application?
If they're the same plans, you can leave the plans here,
Yeah.
just submit the application.
That's what I'll do.
Okay,
Thank you much.
great. All right, now we're down to under discussion, the zoning ordinance amendments, and they're all typed out here. We all have a copy of them here. The lines through what we are leaving out.
I went back and looked at this number 3 and 3A.
Where are we on this? Are you on
B, section 11? On non-conforming.
I'm sorry, are you to go again?
We're on section 11.
Okay,
B.
Yep.
Number 3. And back, we were really, I think, confused as to what 3A was there for. And going back and looking at it and figuring what our legal setback zoning numbers are, and reading this again and saying, in no case shall an expansion, shall the expansion be closer to the property line right away 1/2 of any setback distance requirement zoning the property. So if we have 125, that's 62.5 feet that they can encroach to. If it's the 75, it's then now 37.5 feet. They can't get any closer than that figure. And I'm wondering whether or not that was the reason why they put that in there, to give you an exact figure as to how far they could go or go into a setback for a rebuild or an expansion.
again, we're talking about a non-conforming building. Right,
Correct.
on a lot.
This is all under
Yeah.
non-conforming, because I guess our last meeting, we said we're gonna do away with that.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering whether or not that was a prudent thing to do, because we've eliminated an exact figure with which a person can get or go to the setback.
we're also saying that it conflicted with the paragraph that says you cannot increase the size of non-conforming structures, the footprint or cubic footage. And this says it can be enlarged. And so I thought we were going to get rid of that as well. Because if we have to, you can either be one or the other, unless that's something that you're talking about now that I missed.
Well, I guess what I'm
Just explain that again. You may have missed
My
something.
concern is if we eliminate that, then we have no no boundary, if you will, for the term of how much a person can expand in a non-conforming lot. Okay, this 3A gives you that figure as to how far you can go. If you eliminate that, then
So
I'm confused too, Richard. Where does it say the numbers specifically?
it's the one that we're getting,
That's what happened.
we're crossing out on that small, it's on the back page of of our handout tonight. And it's the one, the A, small a after the 3 that we've crossed out. Because it defines, as Richard said, it defines how far
Three.
you can,
Under 3?
yeah.
I see. Okay, I was under 1. That's what I was, okay. Got it. Sorry.
It's okay, I was there too.
Can I speak to your?
Absolutely, yeah, please enlighten me.
Well, this may not provide enlightenment, but my interpretation of number 3 is that an existing non-conforming building could be expanded such that it does not expand the non-conformity. So it can, you know, if your house is within the front setback, for instance, but it's nowhere near the rear setback, you could build towards the rear, provided that you don't encroach on that setback.
More than one half.
That is right.
Well,
Yeah.
the more than 1/2 is the A, but 3 covers, you can expand it as long as you're not making it more non-conforming.
Yes, but how close can you get to that?
You're allowed to get right up to the setback line, because that's what the zoning ordinance is everywhere else.
Yeah.
Because it calls out the setback.
You're right. That is what that was in there for too. Yeah, that's right. Because you could be too close to the road, but have plenty of room out back to expand your building and not be any more non-conforming.
And so 3A is making it so you don't have to come through the variance process if you want to, as Beverly pointed out last time, make your front porch that's too close a screened-in porch or a 3-season porch.
This is the A that we're crossing out here?
Yeah,
You're talking about?
that's the A that we're crossing out.
And you're saying that that covers a porch?
I'm
Something?
saying that could potentially allow for a porch to be changed without a variance.
If we left that in there.
Correct.
Let's see.
But it also depends how near the porch is to the front property line or right of way.
Okay, shall be expanded.
It just says it.
And it also opens the way for if you are too near to your setbacks, or you're already, well, yeah, we'll say you are already too near to your setbacks, you could put an addition on that encroaches halfway into the setbacks with 3A. And I feel like that's maybe not the intention of that within the ordinance, but that's what that allows. I think in my interpretation of it.
I think we're pretty close on the agreement of what it said. I don't know where and when that was initially.
It wasn't that long ago that was put in there. Well, I don't know how long ago. It wasn't too awfully long ago that was put in
To
there.
define why it was put there.
I think Sarah's right as to why that was put in there. It's so that you could expand your non-conforming building in another direction that you were conforming in and still retain conforming in that area, say to the rear of the building. If your setback was too close, we'll say in the front, say that front setback is too close, it's a non-conforming building, but this allows that non-conforming building to be expanded, we'll say to the rear where there's plenty of area to go before you hit the setback.
Or even if the rear of the building is up to the setback.
Well, then you can't go any further that way. Oh, yeah, if this isn't crossed out, that would say, yeah, you could go further.
Halfway back.
Yeah, but I mean, with this being crossed out, you can't go any further into that one, but this is, it's saying it, but let's see, maybe a larger change provided that the expansion does not further encroach into a setback. We should clarify that it's the setback in question. It's the non-conforming setback is what we're talking about, rather than a setback. It should say, provided that the expansion does not further encroach into the non-conforming setback, maybe.
Yeah, into the non-conformity.
Yeah, yeah, because that clarifies that. Then we know what they're talking about. Then we know that they can expand either side to side if they have setbacks there or in the back, make it bigger, even though it's non-conforming because of that front or even a property line setback too close to the neighbor, something you could go that way or something like that.
Okay, so if we insert that, then we leave that in those two items.
We've defined that at least, define what we're talking about, as to that setback part there. And let's see, and the A says, in no case shall the expansion be closer to a property line or right-of-way line than 1/2 of any setback distance requirement for the zoning district property is located in. So that paragraph is actually saying that we can allow them to expand into
Yeah,
and encroach.
yeah. Can I ask a question? This is kind of confusing. If someone wants to put in, example, change a porch into an enclosed 4-season room or 3-season room, whatever, that's in a specific location. They can't just decide to put it in the back where they have extra room.
It's already there is what you're talking about.
Right.
And yeah, it's already there.
Yeah.
So
So this would not allow them to do that.
actually,
I mean, you're talking about there being sufficient area in the, say, in the back of the property.
to expand
Right. But
non-conforming
if
use.
they are fixed on where the location has to be, is that doesn't help them.
So were we thinking that the porch encroaches in the setback?
Yeah.
area
right.
there?
Say, or maybe it's a porch on the side, and it's encroaching on the side setback.
But even so, if that porch is already on the building is existing, it's
Yeah,
non-conforming,
already
the
there.
porch is there, then that wouldn't affect the setbacks at all if they put it into a family room or something.
Yeah, we can use my house as an example, because my normal porch is right on the line of my neighbor, because it's 1790s house. So I couldn't enclose, like, if I wanted to enclose that porch, I'm not changing the setback at all.
Right.
Okay.
But if I wanted to
Add on to the
back side of my house, which currently doesn't have, it doesn't violate the setback, but the side does. This would allow me currently to be able to.
But in another situation, if you're adding, say, a wheelchair ramp, okay, and you need to go to a specific door, all right, maybe to the living room, I don't know. That would not be, just because you have, and if the setback is on the side, say the door is on the side of the house and you'd be encroaching now on the setback. Just because they have room on the back of the property doesn't help them secure their ramp on the side.
But
that's what I don't understand about your argument about if they have room on the back of the property. That would only apply if you could change your plan to put
if you're expanding your building in the back, yeah. If
To
you could
change
it
your
that way.
plan. But if you're constrained by the positioning, say, of a door for a ramp, this wouldn't help at all.
No, but then you're in front of the ZBA.
Right.
I mean, then because
Right.
not
Okay.
every
Okay.
property is going to be the same. Some probably will end up that way and they would have to go to ZBA, but others may not. Others may say, well, yeah, we can put the door back there.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that makes sense now. If they have flexibility, you're saying.
Mhm.
Okay.
And if they can do it, if they can't, then there's always a ZBA for an out for
Okay.
those guys to go to.
I got it.
But let's take a look at that paragraph, that A paragraph, to see if we need to include that in there. See why, and again, in no case shall the expansion be closer to a property line or right-of-way line than 1/2 of any setback distance requirement of the zoning district that the property is located in, meaning that you can encroach on a 20-foot setback, side setback, we'll say. This allows them to encroach 10 feet into that setback. And I don't know why should that occur if they've got land, say, on the other side and in back or something.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. Why would they even bother? I mean,
Yeah.
they could just add it on to where they have space.
The other way, right? Yeah, I don't know if that should be in there. And we did cross it out, but I'm just going over again. Sarah, do you have any?
Well, I just have a question because I can do the research in the minutes. The way the zoning ordinance has been recorded, I can't tell you exactly when that was added. But if you guys think that the last time you looked at this was the last time this section was touched, I can look at those minutes and give you feedback to why it was added.
Yeah, it could be, you
Just to
don't,
narrow down
you know,
my research.
to figure it out, yeah. If you had time to research that, that would be helpful. But for now, I don't see why that should be in there. And with the clarification under the other setback in the paragraph prior to that.
So if it's deleted, would it allow a non-conforming building a lot to be able to expand, not in the setback that is, you know, so for my example, the side setback, I can't do anything. But if I were to expand in the back setback that is not encroaching on that setback, would the current language allow that to happen?
It would,
If we get rid of that.
with that number 3 in there, it would allow that to happen. Yeah. If you had
And
room.
number
on the
3
property.
would be amended to reflect the non-conforming setback.
Yeah.
Cannot be expanded.
The extra language,
Yeah.
just confirming, right, and clarifying what setback we're talking about there.
Yeah, but the does not further encroach.
Yeah,
Correct.
you know,
So you can't, by that statement there, you
Yeah.
can't go any further.
no, you
than the
can't.
Original, and this A allows you to.
Yeah, that's right. It does allow you to do that by the looks of it. And Sarah's gonna research why that's in there.
Yeah.
I don't recall why the heck it was in
Yeah,
there.
but it is say enlarged or changed. So, so with that language, it would, if I were to, again, enclose my porch, I'm changing it.
As long as you're not changing the footprint.
Yeah, right. The
But this
footprint's the same.
says it may not, it. Okay, yep, you're right, because as long as it doesn't encroach further, okay.
That's the whole idea of it. That's the reason why it's non-conforming is because it doesn't meet the setback. That's all. Let's think about that one.
Sorry about that.
Well, no, that's fine. That's what we're here for. We're here to discuss this stuff. That's our job. You don't want to pass it on, pass the buck to anybody else. I was reading here too. Anybody else have anything on this? Let's see.
Well, I'd like to revisit the beginning of it, the first page.
Let's go right from the beginning.
And I'm
Let's
open
go
to
run it.
feedback of how to format this better for us to look through it because. Sorry, this is confusing. When you guys agreed that you wanted to add the changes on setbacks to Route 10 and 12, you asked for clarity of what could exist in the 30-foot front setback across the board because it's the same everywhere. So I looked to the definitions that we have at the back. So setback, or if you guys just want to read it to yourselves at the bottom of this page, so I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with what is allowed in those 30 feet before you put this forward for public hearing.
Which is driveways, paved or unpaved, landscaping, underground utilities in that front area there. Utility poles should be in there anyways, lighting fixtures, I suppose that would mean a post maybe, fences, drainage devices, swales and such, I suppose, fire ponds and or underground cisterns, signs as permitted under the terms of the zoning ordinance, and mailboxes.
And then the following paragraph are items specifically not to be located in the first 30 feet. Accessory buildings, structures, parking spaces, except for parking spaces serving 1 and 2 family dwellings, parking lots, pavement not part of the driveway, and product display. And then I provided a definition of structure because that is maybe a vague term. Anything constructed with a fixed location on the ground or attached to something having a fixed location on the ground. Items such as buildings, manufactured housing, swimming pools, sheds, gazebos, garages, docks, and boathouses are included in the definition, whether prefabricated or site-built. Items such as underground waste disposal systems, driveways, water wells, fences, retaining walls, gates, signs, lampposts, mailboxes, flagpoles, well coverings, stairs, walkways, and uncovered patios are excluded from this definition.
Yep. Sums it up there. Is that right from our definition?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit familiar there. Just going back up to section 5B3 there. where it says the front setback for everything except buildings and structures is 30 feet from the front property line, and we're crossing out the rest for properties with frontage and blah, blah, blah. That kind of contradicts in the front, the first one on the setbacks, all buildings and structures within the zone shall be located at least 30 feet from the right of way zone. Then it says front setback for everything except buildings and structures is 30 feet, but we're bringing it to 30 feet, aren't we? So buildings would be included into that, the front setbacks, including buildings. Or is that not what we're doing? Because we're changing it from 75 feet from Route 10 or 12 back to the building, front of the building. Right, we're changing that to 30 feet, or we're thinking of changing it to 30 feet, asking the voters, change 30 feet, which we did up here. It's the I'll read over here. All buildings or structures within this zone shall be located at least, and we had 75 feet in there, we're putting 30 feet from the right of way of Route 10. Now, under the business district, we're saying B3, the front setback for everything except buildings and structures is 30 feet from the front property line. We're wrong there. You know, we've got to
wrong.
We've got to either say one way or the other. We could just say the front setback is 30 feet for buildings and structures is 30 feet. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So front setback for buildings and structures, let's just put that in there.
Yeah.
For buildings and structures is 30 feet from the front property line. And then we're crossing out for properties with frontage. Yeah, because we're doing it in that entire zone, regardless of whether it's on Route 10, 12, or a feeder road. The feeder roads had the 30-foot setback anyway. We just did it the 75-foot back one on Route 10 and 12 for expansion of the highway in case they widen it out or something, but it doesn't look like that's ever going to happen. So, and it's taking property from those people, the businesses. So I think we ought to modify that one with that little bit out there. Let's see, what else do we have in here? I think that was the only thing I had in here. Around, goes through the rest of the bit here. And on the floodplain district, we're just updating that to the new FEMA maps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I put the correct language in the bold print and crossed out what we did.
Again, home occupation, we just wanted to clear it up that the planning board meant that home occupations were allowed in all zones.
I actually want to add a little conversation to that. When I was looking through the ordinance again to make the amendment, I noticed that it says home-based business is also allowed in all zones. And so I've added that language as possible amendments to section 5C1P and 6D2I. So it's
Oh, that wasn't in there. Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it didn't have home occupation or home-based business, and I don't want to add it without.
Right. Yeah. Good catch there. Good catch, because that's right. Home-based businesses. The only difference in there is that the home-based business has to come before the planning board, and the home occupation doesn't. So, but yeah, they should be allowed in those zones, and if they meet the zoning stuff requirements in front of this board, then should be allowed to do it. So yeah, it was a good addition there. Thank you, Sarah. Let's see. Accessory uses. Oh yeah, we had that one about the 200 square residential properties. Let's see, one single story storage shed up to 200 square feet in area may be located up to 5 feet from the side or rear property lines, but must still comply with the front setback requirement. Yep. And we're exempting, that is exempt from the building permit requirements, because it all along that had been exempt from building permits. We hadn't required any permit for anything under 200 square feet there, but it looks like what we're doing now, it looks like Mike is making them come in for a permit. And because he wants to make sure that they're not putting it up to the right up to the road or somebody's, you know, right on the property line or something like that. So I don't think he's charging for the permit. Yeah, just making sure that it's going in the right. So it's good to cross that out of there just to make sure that somebody doesn't come in and say, hey, my neighbor didn't put the thing on my property. So let's see. So we got that out of there. And yeah, rezoning that tax map 16 lot 1 entirely in business district made sense. Down here. And so yeah, we're going to probably get some feedback from the Conservation Commission as to that 125-foot setback for a leach field, or I guess dry well as well. Leach field or dry well, 125 feet from wetland. Because again, the state is 75 feet and the town of Swansea has been 125 feet ever practically.
Just since the late 90s.
Yeah, has it been that since the late 90s? Okay, well, that's not too bad. That's not quite forever, I suppose. So
Is that 1990s or?
1990s. So the Conservation Commission, have they discussed that? Anybody
haven't
knows? You know,
They haven't had an opportunity to
Okay.
discuss it yet.
they know about it though, right?
I know one of them mentioned that this was the town voted, the town.
The
voted.
town always votes on it though. I mean, town always has to vote on our zoning regulations.
Yes. But I think it stood alone that year.
It may have, but it was still a zoning regulation that
Yes.
the town voted on, like the town does every single year.
I think
So
Barbara.
There's nothing special about that.
Barbara Scully is not on the Conservation Commission, but she certainly has interest in.
Well, we're looking for good
Plain water.
reason, you know, for what the good reason is. And if there's good reason, then fine, just leave it like that, you know, we'll put it in there. But if there's not really good reason, if it's like, you know, things are better now than they were before, perhaps, you know, that where it can sustain a 75-foot setback rather than.
I don't know.
I don't either. So commission may enlighten us on something on that. So we'll wait for those guys on that. And we're down to the height part of the structure there. Yeah, so we discussed that before. A non-conforming building or a non-conforming structure may be continued indefinitely and may be repaired or remodeled subject to the following. And that was following limitations that we are. And we're taking some of that out. Restoration, reconstruction, and replacement buildings, provided that the cubic footage and footprint of the original building structure stays the same or smaller. Any non-conforming building structures that have been destroyed in public fire. This is all the stuff that's in there now. We haven't changed any of that. By other natural disaster or by voluntary demolition may be replaced within 1 year of the damage or demolition in the same or smaller footprint and with the same or smaller cubic footage. Here's where we change it. We had an increase in cubic footage may be allowed to satisfy current building code for ceiling height requirements, which is what my code enforcement was running into there. So that kind of fixes that problem there.
Mike has suggested slightly different language.
Yeah, what did he say?
Same or smaller cubic footage unless otherwise required by current building code.
So let's see. Same or smaller cubic footage unless otherwise required by current. Okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
For that language.
I would prefer it. Anybody else?
Sure.
Think about that because that doesn't limit them just to the height of a ceiling or whatever the heck it is. That just talks to the building code and the building code may change. And so let's use Mike's language. I like that better. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's good.
And we are we're to 3 again, so we already beat that one.
We have one more item at the under the
Utility generation. Yeah, by right of special exception.
We're recommending that this be tabled so that it can be put to the newly formed Energy Commission and they can have an input in how that's adopted or implemented.
Yeah, that might make sense.
But they've only just begun and I don't think it's fair to task them with this in the time frame that exists.
And
If
we
you
can
agree.
still handle, we can still handle when they come into the planning board on an individual basis. If they can get their variance or ZBA, give them a variance for it there.
And it's only for standalone projects, you know, so this does not impact residential solar. It does not impact even commercial accessory solar uses. It's only standalone facilities like.
The one out on Route 10 there.
Exactly.
And Bob Brolin, he has one over there at the airport too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I'm not sure why his went to ZBA because it is an accessory use to what he's doing. So I don't know if there was a different complication with that. The folder is large. I did not find that stuff, but I can look for it.
It still may have been a use issue, just like this one was out here.
Well, but this one, there was nothing else there, and that was the problem. So like the wastewater treatment facility needed a special exception, not for the use, but because they put it in a floodplain. So I wonder if furlongs may also have been in the floodplain or something.
In that area, it's pretty damp. It can in the spring.
Maybe.
Yeah. So again, I'm not sure why he had to come to the ZBA for that, but it shouldn't have been for the use because it's accessory, it's supplying power to all of his buildings he's got over there.
But it's still going back into the grid. So
Is it?
they all do, as far as I know. Still go back into the grid. It's a give and take type of a thing there. It's not a
Okay.
one or
Okay.
the other type of a thing.
Well, I don't think that we have anything that prohibits that because it just falls under an accessory
Yeah,
structure.
yeah, I'm fine with it too. What board was it? It was energy or?
Energy Commission,
Energy Commission.
brand new. It's what the Community Power Committee turned into now that they've
Okay.
served their function in getting the community power plan implemented.
Let's see what those guys have to say about that when they get up and going. I'm sure they'll have some things to discuss other than our stuff. All right, so we made it through some of those with a few little changes here and there. Got some of that straightened out.
Question. Is the intention to have all of these on the next town warrant, all of the changes?
Yes, well, okay, so everything above the row of asterisks, stars, those are all ones that it has been my interpretation that have been decided, and we did just tweak the language of them a little bit, but I still have to run them by town council to finalize language, so.
The only reason I ask is that the selectmen were very unhappy last year. Because
it was too
the
long.
warrant article just went on and on and on with zoning, and they said they do not want to see that again. So I'm just giving you kind of a heads up that if you can break these apart and do them, you know, some this year, some next, I don't know how you would do it. But
They shouldn't have a problem. These are small items, very small issues there.
their point was that the voter doesn't necessarily have the expertise all you do, understanding the codes. And they feel, you know, that they're inadequate. They can't truly vote on it because they don't know enough about it. And when the lengthier it is, the more difficult.
Fatigue.
They were long ones last year, though. There was a lot of stuff on there last year. That was way too much.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, so that I just.
You know, we can, we'll wait until Ken is here at our next meeting, have him maybe look through with the selectmen. If they think it's too much, then we can break. It's no problem breaking them up into a couple of different years.
I mean, it may not be a huge rush to do them all in 1 year.
Yeah, it's some of this housekeeping stuff.
Phase it in over time, and it'll, you know, make them happy.
Yep. So it'd probably be a good idea to get their input on it too, just to see what they think about it, or maybe just Mike Brantley or something, because I think they let him do some of those
Mike
decisions
would
anyway.
be a good person.
So,
to do
Yeah,
that.
I gave Michael the packet that I supplied you folks at the last meeting, showing everything we were looking at. He doesn't have this one yet, but I'll share this with him with the new.
Yeah, let's just finalize this one, you know, let's the planning board just finalize everything with the new language, maybe at our next meeting or something, we can finalize it all, then give it to Mike, have him read it over. Because that'll be what because we wouldn't have had a public hearing yet, so it's not official, it's just what we're proposing. Let him look at it, if he wants something out of there.
So are we still waiting for feedback on 3A? Are we comfortable with,
You were gonna research 3A for us, just to
Okay.
see what the intent was. If you don't find it, you don't find it. I don't know that it really has to be in there, because it's kind of an odd thing there. But if you do find the intent, that would be helpful. If you don't, then you don't.
but the changes to number 1, I can move to the good list?
This is on our first page we're talking about, or we're talking about?
Yeah.
Above,
this-
Oh, right there, yeah.
The one
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is otherwise required by current building code.
Yeah,
Just the part.
and that was what Mike had different,
Yeah. his
different
language is
language there,
right
yeah.
there. So
Oh,
I
there
can
it is,
move,
right
I can
there.
move that to the
Yep.
other side.
Yep, that one too. And this one too, the number 3 there, we had changed
Okay.
to encroach into the
Um,
non-conforming setback.
Yep, I can move that
So
one.
move that one too. And also, I think we went through the rest of these with very little changes in there, except for that, the one on the very front page about the business district.
Yep, we had a change.
We're just crossing out for everything except just leaving it for buildings.
Yep, and then we had a change to, well, it's not exactly change, but home-based business as well as home.
That's right.
Occupation.
The business on there, yeah. we want
And so
that.
we're still waiting on the 125 setback wetlands
Yep,
and 3A and utility generation with tabling.
yep, let's do.
So
So,
let's do number 3. Are we adding for further encroachment into a non-conforming setback of you were
Yep, I wrote
inserting
that down.
Okay.
I'll have that ready for the next meeting.
All right, then we can finalize the list then at that meeting, then give it over to Mike Brantley to have them see if it's too long for the voters to read or not. Let's see, we had the usual stuff here, you know, under, I see we have, does everyone have a draft copy of that, or did I just get that?
Yeah,
Did I
you
just
just
get
got
that?
so
Okay,
you can look at it
I'll look
again
it over.
before we force it on everyone.
all right. I do have some other things, you know, want me to wait, because I have some other things, and I have the same thing there, but put notes and stuff on here. Want me to wait until I'll put them on this one here?
Yeah, put them on that one,
Yeah.
it'll be less confusing
I'll
for
do
you to
that.
add them if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, just a few things. We're updating the site plan review regulations. Do you have a copy of those? You must have a copy of those in the,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So we're reviewing the whole thing and making changes here and there and just reorganizing them a little bit. So we're discussing those from time to time.
Once we get the reorganization actually correct, I will print up drafts for everybody so everybody can look at them, but it's possible I still have errors in the reorder.
Okay, well,
because
that's what this is
Yeah,
for.
it
Take a look
got-
at that.
it
Okay.
got really confusing, I'm not gonna lie.
It was
So,
confusing, and I think I've still got mine written up since, no, I gave it to you, I think.
Yeah,
I gave
and
it-
I still have those in the town office, but
Okay,
combined, anyway, it doesn't matter. An extra set of eyes is appreciated
Yeah.
before we share it with everyone.
then we'll hold up on any of that. Let's see what else wanted to bring up to see. And the site plan regs, rules of procedure amendments. Everyone probably has a copy of the rules of procedure. Just read them over. You know, they're short and simple, and we might want to just keep them short and simple rather than have them
Yeah.
too lengthy.
And we did discuss amendments several meetings ago.
Yeah, we did.
I don't remember if you all still have your.
This is on the rules of procedure.
What's the discussion now on that?
The discussion essentially was incorporating language that reflects the new laws. You know, sort of changing the timelines, and
Yes.
we did reach consensus on what that language should be, but we never set a date for the public hearing to adopt the new language because we were sort of pending everyone reviewing the rules of procedure to make sure there weren't other changes that were warranted at this time.
So let's look those over. If everyone has a copy of the rules, not at the meeting tonight, but within the next couple of weeks, read that over, the rules of procedure of the planning board, see if there are any other little tweaks and things we can do to it. Because yeah, we do have the timeline incorrect because of legislation change.
And the other thing was that the planning board handbook that I believe everyone should have a copy of now. One of the appendices of that is a sample rules of procedure. So if you want to compare it to absolutely everything you might consider including in rules of procedure and peruse that appendix just to see if there's anything that you would like to adopt as a board to have in yours.
Take a look at it. Yeah, well, I do have a copy of that someplace there. That's in the we don't have the new books like Richard has, right? That's not what you're talking about?
That's not what I'm talking about. It's
Is it this?
yes.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So everybody should have it.
You have a copy of that?
This right here.
If you don't have a copy of it, you can get it from the NHMA website, I think, or website, or send me an email and I will send it to you. But that's.
And there's, goes on a little bit there. I've got a copy of it here someplace too. And there's some of the stuff that we want to adopt in there, some of.
Oh, yeah, I
stuff
think
maybe not. Yeah, I have a copy of it
included
there. Yeah, a few weeks back or a few meetings back.
Yep.
Got some interesting stuff in there. So let's do that. Let's see if we can maybe nail that down at our next meeting for the rules of procedure week. The site plan regs are going to take.
Is
a
that
while.
this? That you're talking
Site
about?
plan review regulations. We're going to be looking at those, but the rules of procedure, it's just a smaller list. Let me get it out here. It's this one right here. It's only about 2 or 3 pages long, and it's a Swansea planning board rules and procedure.
I'll
And
send that out to everybody.
okay,
Oh, can you email it to
Yeah.
me? Perfect.
yeah, and it just denotes how we run our business, how we run the meetings and stuff like that, and about just that little stuff. So good to have on there. And if we can, yeah, get that, then we can have the public hearing after, we can get that stuff straightened out, and then we can just work on the site plan regs, for meetings, like that. When we have time, work on them, we'll get them done at some point. So that brings us to other business that may be required.
I apologize, I have other business.
Okay, is it required though?
Yeah, sort of. Boondoggy has a hot dog truck on Route 10, kind of across from the Marlowe's. They would like to move across the street and further north to the lot that had the bus stops here.
Oh, yeah.
And in the past,
I'm sorry, they should get a lot across the street from, I know where the Milwaukee is, yeah.
yeah,
So it's just north on the west side of Route 10. It's
But isn't that where the new apartment building's going?
a little
it's
further.
further up.
Further on down where the auction house was, McPhail's auction house.
Exactly, on McPhail's property.
Oh, okay. Go
Route
down.
10 Auto, and then the auction barn right next to there that the brother owned,
Yeah,
where that food place is out there. That's where I'm assuming anyway. That's that where the
It's that
bus
bus
stops
stop,
there,
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
but that place is gone now.
I was wondering about that when I
Yeah.
drove by the other day.
So they'd like to move down there, and in the past, they have moved their hot dog truck before, and it was pretty informal. I have copies of the minutes and that process, and so I guess the question is the process going to remain the same? And they can just submit a letter saying what they want to do, and you folks will review it, or do you want them to go through a more formal site plan or something?
Generally, that's what we do. We've been pretty informal for those guys. There are a few of those hot dog trucks around that have moved from place to place, you know, parking lot to parking lot. And what we've had them do is come in, you know, with a letter, but come in with just a small little site plan that they draw themselves, where on the property they're going to put it, and where they plan to have their picnic tables, and where they plan to have little parking or whatever they're going to do there. Just a little bit of a layout, and the planning board usually just does that at one meeting.
And does that need to be a public hearing?
No, we haven't had public hearings on
That's
it
fine.
anyway.
I just wanted to
No.
write.
It's just been, it's noticed at a regular meeting, the regular notice, what's going on, who it is, and they come in and they plead their case.
they also need a letter from the property owner that is.
They do, you're right. Yeah, they need
that
permission
should
from the property
state
owner.
They have agreed to allow
Yep.
them to be there, right?
Yep. Brought that up. They do need that.
Last year, when the individual wanted to do a consignment place by the Navajo fence, I think it is, not the Navajo fence, but there's a fencing place. Just north of where Cutler School is on Route 10, did she just come in with a letter, permission to do that, or did we have a meeting?
I think, where was that?
We had a number 10, that's the lady that had a bus or something like
Right.
that, full of the clothes and
Oh,
just knickknacks
yeah,
that she was gonna sell. She had that little site plan drawn up.
Did we have a public meeting on that, or did we just do?
I don't think it was a public hearing, but it was at a regular scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
We had it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want
Same type of thing.
change things.
Yeah, it was the same type of thing. And yeah, the planning board can accommodate people. We aren't here to obstruct business and things. We're here to make sure that the businesses comply with the zoning ordinance that the townspeople have voted on. And keep everybody happy. We're here to help them comply with that. We aren't here to stand in their way in any way, but we aren't here to give them a free pass either. Just here to make it right.
And the final thing, can we discuss our Thanksgiving meeting that is still on the calendar?
Anything scheduled for that meeting? On the agenda?
No,
Yes.
I have blockaded
Okay, then.
Thanksgiving, and I have told people that if they are on, like, all of the applicants that we have up for the next meeting, I have indicated that there will not be a meeting on Thanksgiving, so their stuff will be continued into December. If continuation is necessary.
Then good. Let's have a vote on it then, the planning board, we will not be meeting on Thanksgiving Day. We will just have,
I put a motion that we do not meet on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I'll third if needed.
motion by Michael Day, that the planning board will not meet on Thanksgiving Day, and their next meeting will be December, is it 8th? And their next meeting will be December 8th.
No, our next meeting is
Oh,
November.
right,
November something.
November tenth.
The next meeting after thing, I mean,
Yeah.
in place of that meeting, we want to make sure that, we're not telling them, oh, we're just gonna meet the day before or the day after. What are you talking about? We're canceling that meeting. So,
Yeah.
so let's revise the motion to, we cancel the meeting of November 24th.
Second on
Thanks.
that.
Right, but the second.
Okay.
So, in your agreement with that, that the motion is to cancel that meeting of November. Okay.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, then that's cleared up.
Thank you.
I don't think we've ever met on Thanksgiving. It's always fallen on that day where we've never met. Yeah, we haven't had anything pressing to do it.
I do have a heavy agenda though, from what I understand.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Just
well,
buckle up for next meeting. It's not gonna be fun.
The very next one.
Next one.
Sweet.
I don't think I'm gonna be here.
Are you serious? No.
Okay, any other further business, Sarah?
I'm done.
All right,
What
anybody
is on
else?
the next one?
We have site plan review for the 76 unit age restricted next to the airport. And we have site plan review for the 32 unit condominium that you guys already approved a couple years ago next to the future fire station. But their approval expired, so they're coming back through.
It must have been before I was on, I think.
It might have been, it's just outside of the fire station. There's a big excavator parked in that area. right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not there.
Oh, it's not there anymore?
It
Oh,
wasn't there today.
oh, they took it out. It's right there.
And I'm not sure what else, but those are the big things that are, those are what are in front of me right now.
Oh,
Did they miss their deadline or they're just coming for an extension? The one on.
Oh,
Route 32?
it's expired.
It's expired, so they
It's
have to come
completely
in.
expired. It's, so we're treating it.
They're
as a
coming in
brand
for the
new-
whole segment.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are they coming under workforce housing? Did they say?
No, they're market rate.
Okay.
All right, not wild about, or it wouldn't be wild about renting an apartment next to a fire station. You know, the whistle's going and.
Well, could be a little distracting. And then you got the planes in the backyard coming down.
Well, these folks are gonna be buying them because they're condos.
Oh,
That's right.
good luck with that.
They'll be all pilots. Okay, any other business as may be required? If there's no other business, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Brandon Self to adjourn. Is there a second? Seconded by Richard.
That's the easiest thing to say.
All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, and we are officially adjourned.